Hey, Trailblazers. There's always been one stop between Houston and the Guadalupe Mountains that has mattered to me the most, and that's my stop at Mom's Kitchen Express in Van Horn, Texas. Over the years, I've told our hiking community about this little gym out in West Texas and to swing by when they're heading to the Guads for a wonderful meal. For me, it was always a joy to stop by and hear Mr. Espinosa saying, "Another one of your hikers stopped by for a meal." They had to close the restaurant down for a couple of years due to family needs, but there's some exciting news. Mom's Kitchen Express is open once again. Same wonderful recipes, and it still feels like home. And it still carries the legacy of the man who loved this land as much as we do. So if you're heading out to the Guadalupe Mountains or just passing through Van Horn, make sure you stop by for a meal and to tell them hi from the Trailblazing Texas Podcast community. Mr. Espinosa, you were missed. Now on with the episode. Welcome to the Trailblazing Texas Podcast, where we embark on a journey through our diverse Texas landscapes and breathtaking trails while always engaging with our amazing Texas hiking community. So settle in, tighten up those bootlaces, and get ready for the thrilling tales awaiting for you on this episode. Welcome to the Trailblazing Texas Podcast. I'm your host, Jason, and today I am totally pumped with our next guest because I had no idea that in Texas we had a national preserve. Thanks to Kenny at San Angelo State Park, she advised me that we did and got me connected with our next guest. Megan, welcome to the podcast.
Oh, thank you so much, Jason, for having me here.
Absolutely. All right. I usually give the title of the guest, but your title is a pretty big one. So go ahead and give the listeners what your title is at the preserve.
Yeah, so officially my title is Chief of Interpretation and Education, which means I supervise all of the park rangers here at Big Thicket who connect directly to with our visitors. Those are the rangers who take you on walks and paddle programs and education programs, the rangers who do all the web work. So I oversee like the visitor services division and also do public information and partnerships. So it's a very broad title, very big umbrella, but I get to do a little bit of a lot of things.
So you're busy.
Yes.
All right. So I think for me, one of the most important segments of the podcast is really to get to know you. I totally enjoy it. The listeners through the comments totally enjoy it. I think it's important for the listeners to know, especially at our national parks, state parks, like who are the people that bring us these programs, the enjoyment, and teach us how to responsibly enjoy these environments.
Mm-hmm.
So how long have you been in the National Park Service?
I was actually just thinking about this, trying to get all my dates lined up. I started this kind of career 21 years ago as an intern at Pecos National Historical Park in New Mexico. I was not in gray green uniform. I was just an intern, but I've been doing this kind of stuff for that long. My first official gray and green position was actually in Alaska at the Alaska Public Lands Information Center. I was doing my graduate program up there and I got a job there and I just fell in love. I was already in love with the National Park Service beforehand, but that just, embraced it even more. But my first federal job was actually at Hoover Dam as a tour guide in Southern Nevada. I've been living in Nevada for 5 years at that time, working in partnership with a park, with Lake Mead. But I got my career started at Hoover Dam, and then I went to Fort Union National Monument in northeastern New Mexico for 3.5 years as their education technician. And then 7 years ago, this April, which seems just so insane, I moved here to Southeast Texas to work at Big Thicket National Preserve. First as the volunteer program coordinator and community outreach specialist. And then 1.5 years into that position, our chief of interpretation left to go to another park. And so I stepped into the job and I've been doing it ever since then and loving it.
So as you're describing your path to
Mhm.
where we are now. Like my face, I was just like, huh? All the I'm just imagining all these wonderful places that you've been, all the responsibilities, all the different hats you've worn through our National Park Service.
Yep.
I think the next logical question for me is why East Texas and what brought you? I mean, like, are you Google searching like different jobs or
Right.
I heard Texas is better than Alaska's or better than Nevada. I'm heading down there. Like, what brought you to the preserve?
When I was at that spot in my career when I was working in New Mexico, when I started looking at other jobs, I applied to a good amount of other jobs. 99% of them outside of New Mexico. Although I am from New Mexico, I would have been totally fine staying there. But I started looking for that next career step, and I saw the position open at Big Thicket, and my first thought was like, oh, Southeast. I don't do humidity very well. My curls don't tend to like it. And I was like, Southeast Texas, it's the farthest away from, in Mexico you can be in Texas. But I had this supervisor who was gung ho, loved Big Thicket. And she really sold it as a spot where you could do a lot of different things because it is a national preserve, which we can get into the differences. And the current chief of interpretation was just really fantastic to talk to during my interview. When I got the job offer, my family came to visit Big Thicket. It was just about this time 7 years ago. And we drove down here and we're like, oh, there's like trees and not too many hills, but trees. And so collectively, we're like, this seems like a really, really good spot for us. We were only going to be here for about 5 years for career growth and everything. And it got to a point where I was getting more career growth. My husband, who also works for the Park Service, got a job here. And my kids enjoyed the school so much. They're like, can we just stay until like we've graduated? So we made that decision because we love the park so much. We love what we get to do here. We love the community. And so, yeah, we'll be here another 4 years and 4.5 years until my youngest graduates from high school. And then after that, you're going to have to find me at the next park and see where I go.
Oh, yes. And you are welcome to come on the podcast.
Awesome. Even if it's not in Texas?
It's not in Texas.
Awesome.
So when you had your interview, and I think this is a really important question,
Mhm.
was there any kind of like they didn't want you to come and interview or come see the park like only on these certain times? And I'm asking that because did you know about the mosquitoes or the horseflies?
I mean, since we had lived in Alaska beforehand, I do know
Okay.
mosquitoes. And I went to college and high school up in Michigan and Wisconsin, so I was used to those mosquitoes as well. Horseflies, I was not. I was not knowing at all. Actually, for any interviews within the Park Service, you have to do them by a certain kind of fairness. So if they invited me out, they have to invite everybody out. So a lot of the times when you apply for jobs within the Park Service, you do a whole lot of Google searching. You kind of see, but really you don't get the feel of the place until you actually get there. And that's why it was important for us to visit as a family so we could actually see the spots, see the community, and really be like, okay, we can see ourselves here. But honestly, I mean, that first summer was a shell shock for all of us because Nevada is hot and dry. I mean, drier than dry. They think anything over 10% humidity is humid. And we get here and it's like swimming in the air as you're, during the summertime. And I remember one summer we had a really bad drought and the weather meteorologist kept on saying, well, it's hot, humid and dry. And I'm like, humid and dry don't go together. And then I realized it's still humid, but it's dry, out. There's not a lot of rain, but we have had to adjust some of our perspectives, but it's been fun.
I can tell you, I'm about 2 hours from you all. Almost every weekend, I'm on the Lone Star Hiking Trail, hiking a section of it or day hiking, except the summer. And I always say, the listeners know this, that I don't hike because of the heat. Well, no, because I can mitigate the heat. I just say that because it's a little bit more manly than saying I'm scared of the horseflies. They keep me off the trail, and so that's really the real reason why I don't hike in the summer is because of the dang horseflies.
We all have our reasons. It's totally fine.
All right, you pull up to the parking lot. You get out of the car. What was your first impressions of Big Thicket?
Oh man. My first impression was it was so green, which then, I mean, we visited in February and we're like, this is really green. We're coming from like northeast New Mexico. That's, mountainous, but also prairie. It was really green to us. And then we were here a year and we're like, oh, it's really not that green in February. But to us, it was very green. It was very thickety, very dense forest, which was we're not, at least I'm not super used to. And then overwhelming, that dense forest has almost a very overwhelming sense to it. But man, it still pulled me in just enough to accept the job.
So I don't know if you've been to other preserves or maybe whenever you all have meetings with, in your National Park
Mm-hmm.
Service role and stuff, and you share information with other parks or get together. What do you think makes Big Thicket different than other preserves that you've either seen, been to, or about?
Yeah, so we do hold the title of being the first national preserve. We were the
Really?
first. Yeah, we were the first national preserve signed. We were signed the same day as Big Cypress, but depending on which park you talk to and which park lore you listen to, ours was signed first and theirs was signed second. Oh, I don't think Cypress thinks that too. But so we were actually designed to be a national preserve. They took a lot of the local considerations that they still wanted to be able to hunt on the land that they've been hunting on for generations. They wanted to still fish. They still wanted to be able to use the land. It's very, for any listeners who are used to Western public lands, it's more similar to a BLM, a Bureau of Land Management land. We have oil and gas on our property, a lot of it abandoned and a lot of it not being used, but there is that, we have that ability. Timber industries are very still predominant here in Southeast Texas. So they wanted to still be able to use it and then but also preserve it because they wanted to make sure that there were still remnants of, some of the really big ecosystems like the longleaf pine ecosystem that had been here was still protected. I actually grew up in northern New Mexico, right outside of the Valles Caldera, which became a national preserve, almost 11 years ago. And some of the reasons why that became a national preserve is very similar to Big Thicket. They wanted to still be able to hunt and they still wanted to be fished, but they wanted to still protect that land. And so I think Big Thicket is so unique in that way that it set up this model within the National Park Service. Prior to us, it was very much protect the land in the most pristine way that we can and recreate on it, but in a very, sometimes limiting abilities. And, Big Thicket came and was like, well, we could let people get off the trail. We could let people, backcountry camp and not stay in, campsites had already been put together. And so I think we helped maybe crack the door open a little bit more for a wider recreation use on national park lands than had been allowed beforehand. And then if you think about it, and this is probably much too long of an answer, in 1981, Alaska, they had the NICLA Act, which then took parts of national parks and had some of it turn into preserve land. So then Native Americans, could use those areas for subsistence hunting. And so again, we kind of influence this ability for people to continue using the land in the way that their ancestors, whatever their ancestors are, which is, I think, a really amazing thing. So it gives us a lot of flexibility, not just for the way we protect our land, but we also the way we tell the story, which is pretty cool.
All right. It's funny that you say, what is it? Via Cardera?
Valles Caldera.
Okay. I have a video clip with my really good friend who lives in New Mexico. It took me 15 minutes to say that thing correctly. And I've been there. Longmire was filmed there. So I went to Longmire's house. Okay, to the listeners. Okay, the Longmire series on, I don't know what it's on now. The movie part of it, they're great. But if you dive into the books, they're 1,000 times better.
Ooh.
But yeah, do you not know about the books?
There's I know
20
about the books,
of them.
but I haven't read them. So now I'm going to have to go and read them for sure.
Oh my gosh. Totally different story.
Yeah.
So jump on that. But yeah, I mean, it was funny that you said that. I still can't say it, but it makes for a funny video clip.
Oh my gosh, I'll have to see that. Yes, I was born in Los Alamos, so, Bandelier was my
So was Sam.
I love that. Yeah, Bandelier was my backyard national park, and I spent my childhood driving through the Valles Caldera, not knowing what the other side looked like because it was private. And so when they opened it up and I got to drive back there, I drive back there with my grandfather who lived in Los Alamos at the time, and we're like, holy cow, they've been hiding this beautiful spot. I mean,
Yeah.
I was just over the moon when they made that part of the National Park Service system.
Nice. Yeah, his parents I think they're retired now, but world famous physicists. So, I guess it kind of connects to that part of New
Small world.
Mexico. Yep. All right, I love this question. I'm going to split it into two parts.
Okay.
And I love it because, all the state parks that have been on the podcast, whether it's a superintendent or interpretive ranger, they all have the same answer. What does a typical day look like for you at the park? Let's see if the National Park Service has the same answer.
Oh man, a typical day. I would say the majority of my day is spent supporting staff, and whether that be supporting them with giving them lunch breaks from the front desk or helping make sure that they understand an intricacy of a question that we get from a volunteer, supporting them through writing project grants and things like that to bring in interns and more money to try different things. So supporting staff is a typical day, and it can look in very much different ways. And then another part of it is trying to find new, creative, awesome ways to connect the park to people who don't know who we are. As you said, not a lot of people realize that we are a National Park Service site and that they might have come here and realize, oh, I didn't realize this was actually part of the same system that has, Big Bend or Yellowstone or Grand Teton, those places that people go on vacation to. They literally have a spot like that in their backyard. And that kind of work can be, we're actually working on new waysides for all of our trailheads. So when somebody comes up to a trail and they haven't either stopped at a visitor center or seen our website, they will have information that explains, safety things, but also explains like they are here within Big Thicket National Preserve. What is a national preserve? So yeah, that's kind of some of my typical day. And then, answering phone calls, things like that. So it is never the same. And I'm guessing that's what everybody also says.
Bingo.
It is never the same, but there is a beauty in that. So
Absolutely. And an excitement, right? Like you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
So second part of the question is, what is your favorite part of the job?
Oh man, I think I kind of hit upon that, but supporting staff. I love supporting our staff. I've been blessed with some really great supervisors, and I want to continue to pay that forward to the next generation of park rangers. But I also really love connecting people to the park, like what we're doing right now. I love when I get a chance to go and be at the front desk and talk to visitors who come in, answer phone calls, go out to schools if they need me to go out. Because the more times that we can tell people about Big Thicket and these beautiful places like National Park Service sites, it becomes more familiar to them and they're more interested in showing up and learning about it. And then hopefully if they want to learn about it and they love it, then they also want to help protect it. That's what we want to grow, this next generation of stewards that help continue protecting what we have, but also find ways to protect maybe new places that we need to also continue to protect. So it's fun. I don't do as much connecting with the people. It's more supporting, but I always find a way to even them out.
Nice. I like this next question. And, when people talk, and you even said a second ago, like you named some of these really amazing places in the National Park Service. But when people say national park, national preserve, I mean, what comes to my mind are mountains, canyons, vastness. So how do you pitch the value of a preserve like this? And I'm not saying that there's a competition, but it's totally different than what probably you would normally expect. So how do you do that?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a difference. You might not get a big stirring feeling in your soul when you stand and look at a bunch of, dense forest. But what I tell people is when they come to visit Big Thicket is to slow down a bit. That when they're going on the trail, it might look very monolithic. It might look like just a bunch of greenery. But the slower you walk, the steps that you take, you look down at your ground when you don't want to step on a stake. But you have opportunities to find, we have hundreds of different types of mushrooms and flowers and orchids and like all of these amazing things that if you are just barreling down the trail, you're not going to be able to see it. And you're going to just think that Big Thicket is just a bunch of trees. But it is a lot, it's a slower pace kind of park. It's a park where you have the little moments that you're like, oh, this is quite amazing out here. And then once people, I think, realize the biological diversity of the area, it also starts to make connections. The fact that you can find out on a trail a cactus in Southeast Texas, and you're like, how is a cactus surviving out here next to like a bagel or a swamp with the big cypress trees? When you start connecting those pieces together, you realize that it is a really special place, that it does deserve to be protected, even right next alongside to the Grand Canyon and Yellowstone and places like that.
So if you can sum up Big Thicket in just 3 words, what would they be?
Ooh, I would say dense, overwhelming, and I know I only had 3, but here's 2, underappreciated.
Oh, nice. I like it. So what are some of the ecosystems that you can find there and that, visitors can actually experience? For example, for me, like going to the Guads, you're in desert and you get up a little elevation, you're in these massive forests and,
Mm-hmm.
so what can visitors expect there?
A lot of our ecosystems are really determined on how far or how close they are to our waterways. Water is a big part of Big Thicket's story, both with how Big Thicket became to be with glaciers, and then also now with our waterways like Village Creek and Nature's River and Trinity River. So if you are right next to a creek, you're in the bottomlands floodplain. You're going to have some amazing open spaces because it does flood enough. But you're going to have that rich, dark soil and things like that. And then as you get further away, you're going to go up the slope forest. You're going to have some beech trees. You're going to have loblollies and magnolias, which have the most amazing white flower. And then the further you get away, the more on top of the kind of small peaks that we have here. We don't have much topography, but we have a little bit. Then you get into those sandy lands, which is, the leftover remnants of all that sand being pushed down from creeks and everything. And that's where you find the longleaf pine ecosystem, and you can find, our carnivorous plants. So sometimes in some places they're all mushed together, but if you take the time and spend enough time kind of exploring the different elevations we have here away from the creek, you really kind of start to see that delineation of the major ecosystems, and that can be anywhere from longleaf pines, bottomland floodplains. I mean, it's really cool.
Wow. Yeah. So we're going to get back to this, but when you said carnivorous plants, I always wondered where these plants come from. And just to real quickly, I bought, I think this is what is it? Where it has the dew on the leaves when
Sundew?
it grabs. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I've been getting ready for this episode.
Oh my gosh, I love it.
So yeah, we're going to get back to that. So
Good.
what is the strangest plant or animal that you've come across in the thicket?
Oh man, I think some of the fungus that we have here. So we have over 600 different types of fungus in the preserve. And according to Ranger lore, every time a new fungus person comes to check out Big Thicket, they find new fungus. Like there's just more and more things. So there's like fungus that looks just like the, mushrooms that you find in Mario Kart. There's, really waxy looking ones. So anytime I see anything that looks weird, I'm pretty sure it's a piece of fungus. But there's just some really weird plants out there. And I'm like, you don't look like you're supposed to be here, but I think you are, so I'm just going to let you be. But yeah, I would say our fungus is some of the weirdest stuff that we see out there.
So I was doing some research and going back to carnivorous plants because that's so cool. I think, was it 4 of the 5 that are found in North America are found in your preserve?
Yep.
That's crazy.
It is so cool.
And do visitors actually get to see them, like
Yeah.
off trail or something?
We have two trails that really were put there because there are carnivorous plants easily found. But the crazy thing is, like, there's carnivorous. I found sundews in my front yard after living here about a year, and I was like, "Wait, they're here!" Like, I was so excited, like a little school kid. So they're actually more prevalent than we even realized or think first time seeing them. But yeah, there are trails that you can walk down and you can see pitcher plants like up close and personal. You can see sundews just laying there. The butterworts are really hard to find because they're not much bigger than my thumb. They're really like delicate. It's easier to see them in springtime when they got their little flower poking up, which is amazing. But the bladderworts, I have not seen a bladderwort out in wild. I've seen bladderworts that have been brought back by our biologists who've been like, here, this is what a bladderwort looks like. Those are definitely harder to spot if you're not exactly sure what you're looking at, but it is really cool to tell people, like, they're like, we want to see this. And I'm like, okay, if you go to this trail and walk 300 feet this way and look down, you should be able to see it. And then people will come back and be like, oh, I saw it. So it's a lot of fun.
As a child, and I can only relate this to like ant lions. I used to catch little ants and drop them in the ant. Oh man, that was so much fun. But yeah, you see these carnivorous plants at Home Depot or wherever, and you're like, where did these suckers come from? So why do you think they thrive at the preserve?
For being a place that has some really great soil, it also has some not really great soil. It really depends on the water table and things like that. And so in areas that it doesn't have great soil, that's the best place for carnivorous plants to grow. They do get a lot of their energy from the meat that they consume, but they still do photosynthesis like any other plant. And so the ability to see such a high concentration is really amazing. And there are other national parks throughout the South that have have all of these same carnivorous plants. There's other parks that don't tell you where you can see them because they've either been poached so much or removed. So the fact that we just very willingly say, yeah, you can go to this spot and see 400 to 500 pitcher plants it's a testament to what we have here, the diversity and, the things that you can see, which is, it's fun.
And then you say, you can see these, but we also have a camera, so don't touch them.
Exactly. We'll be watching you.
Yeah. Are there any endangered animals or species of plant that make the thicket home?
We do. We actually have two endangered species on the federal list. One is the Texas trailing phlox. It's actually only found in a couple counties here within Texas. And then the red cockaded woodpecker, which is seen kind of across the South. And then we have the Louisiana black bear, which is on the state threatened list. It's not the federally threatened list, but the state threatened list. And so, when we use and when we talk about our resources and restoration efforts, we use those species to kind of help tell the story. Why we're bringing longleaf pine ecosystems back is so that we can have a very biologically rich area, including Texas trailing phlox that like to live in longleaf pine savannas that have more of the open areas. And then, those red cockaded woodpeckers, if we could get those reintroduced back to Big Thicket, that would be really, really wonderful.
Speaking of birds, when I started this podcast, I got all the way down to probably episodes in the 50s, and I had Choke Canyon come on, and Hannah started talking about birding. I had no idea that was a thing. And I was like, what? And it's addicting. I bought, so this is, we just moved here, bought some land. I bought a birdhouse, some birdhouses and a bird feeder with cameras. And oh man, I'm addicted. So what is the birding life like there at the preserve?
Yeah. So, we've had over 300 species of birds documented in Big Thicket, about 70 of them considering like Big Thicket home, because of that dense understory growth, it tends to be a birding by sound park. You listen, you're like, okay, there's a bird that direction. It's this kind of bird. There are some more open areas that birders love because those are the places you can actually see the birds. We are on a migratory route, so we do get sometimes some really weird birds and birders. I'm not calling them weird, but we definitely get the birders come through and they're like, we've seen this. So yeah, I birders are a great community of stewards, and they want to make sure that they still get to go see their birds. I would say, Jason, if you want to really see the inside of a birder's mind, you should watch The Big Year, because that movie, it's with Steve Martin, Jack Black, and Owen Wilson. That is the most quintessential birder movie I've ever seen. It made me actually want to become a better birder because it looked like so much fun.
So what is your personal favorite ecosystem in the park?
Ooh, I love the longleaf pine ecosystem. I'm partial to pines. I grew up surrounded by ponderosa pines. And so longleaf pines are, I think, the funniest looking pine tree as a baby, because they're just this big poofy ball of seedling grass. And then it grows up and it looks like a weird Dr. Seuss tree for like the first 5 to 7 years. It goes through like a very teenager stage. But when it gets, full grown and you stand in a longleaf pine ecosystem and you hear the wind kind of blow through it, it's magical. It's not dense. It's not overwhelming. It feels very, very freeing to be out there. So I love that. I love that ecosystem.
Nice. And speaking of just of the ecosystems, if someone, I don't know, maybe has a day to spend out at the park, would they be able to have enough time to experience all these different ecosystems?
Yes, for sure. We have multiple trails that are short enough in distance, but unique in different ecosystems, that they can really get a great taste of what Big Thicket is like. Our closest trail to us, our most popular trail, I should say, is called the Kirby Nature Trail. And even if somebody just walks 5 minutes down the trail, they walk to the first boardwalk across a cypress slough. And it's very swampy. That's usually where the most mosquitoes are on that trail. You have these big cypress trees. So you kind of get the idea and the feeling of what the swamp is like. And from that trail, you can drive 10, 15 minutes to the Sundew Trail and do the inner loop to check out, the sundews and the pitcher plants. And then the outer loop takes you to the longleaf pine ecosystem. So you can go from a swamp to an open forest all within like 15 minutes, which is just amazing. And then there's other places that if you have more time, depending on which direction you're going, you can even drive past our Lance Rozier unit, which looks like it's directly out of Jurassic Park with like these big palmetto fronds. And again, that kind of swampy look. So there is definitely opportunity for visitors who even just have only a couple hours to kind of get more than a snapshot, but not a complete photo album of what Big Thicket is all about.
So how many acres make up the Big Thicket?
Yeah, we have just over 113,000 acres. We are spread across 15 different units, 9 land units and 6 water corridors. And we can be found in 7 counties within Southeast Texas. So because we're so spread out, we actually have next door neighbors, 500,000 next door neighbors, people, adjacent landowners, people who go through the park to get home. So there's a lot of ability to see all of these different parts, but not have it all interconnected, which is also fascinating.
Yeah, I was looking at the map and I was like, whoa, it's a little overwhelming.
It really is. The first, 6 months that I worked here, I tried to go see most of the different locations, and there's locations that, we haven't had many visitors at, and other locations people love to go there. So there is space to go and be all by yourself, unlike Yellowstone's, parking lots and things like that. But then there's also areas, depending on the time of the year, you could see other people out on the trail. You could have other visitors, exploring Big Thicket alongside you.
Nice. So speaking of hiking, how many miles of trail does the park have or the preserve have?
We have over 40 miles. Our two longest trails, the Turkey Creek Trail, which runs the Turkey Creek unit itself alongside Turkey Creek, just in case you're wondering where we get all those names from. And the Big Sandy Creek Trail, which is a multi-use trail. It's the only trail that we allow not only hiking, but also biking and horseback riding on. That one is 9 miles one way. And so we have two really nice long trails. And then a lot of the rest of our trails are anywhere between a mile up to 3-4 miles. So there is a variety of lengths. So you don't have to feel like you're going to be backpacking every time you come visit Big Thicket, but there are times and places and trails that you could get out to spend the night, in the backcountry, which is also a really cool experience.
Wow. So what do you think are some of your most popular hiking trails? And then what do you think are some of the trails that don't get enough love?
Yeah, I would definitely say our most popular trail, the one that all the locals know for sure, is the Kirby Nature Trail. It is the one that is just right down the road from the visitor center. It's the one that has, the quintessential Big Thicket visit. You get to see all those bottomland floodplain plants and cypress trees and a creek. And it's a fairly easy trail. There's the smallest amount of elevation, but it is really family-friendly, multi-generational family. One of our underutilized trails is called the Beaver Slide Trail. And it is underutilized because it is really not, there's not a lot of great signage on it just yet. You kind of have to know exactly where to turn, and you park alongside one of the county roads. But it is a 1.5 mile loop, and it goes around quite a good sized pond. That's actually one of the places that you can see some of the bladderworts. And during the fall time, that's actually a really favorite spot for people to go to see the very limited amount of fall coloring that we do get here in Southeast Texas. And that trail, I just don't see a lot of people on, but it is, it's really peaceful. And I like the loop portion of it too. You can see a little bit of everything new, and then you get back to your car and you can continue on with your day.
Nice. So what kind of wildlife can visitors expect to encounter within the preserve?
We get all kinds of wildlife. Deer are, are probably biggest wildlife we have here, minus hogs. Hogs are invasive though, so we don't consider them something you want to really go see. But we do have the hogs, feral hogs here. We get a very occasional, like once every 2 to 3 years, black bear comes over from Louisiana to check us out. So there is always that chance. But besides those kind of big megafauna, I know it's really cool. Besides those, you can definitely see a lot of squirrels, foxes, coyotes. I've seen coyotes out and about. A lot of squirrels. Armadillos you can see armadillos here, which they are just the cutest thing ever. And then, of course, we talked about the birds being out and about. So, it's a really, it's not like the big bison that you get to see, but there are times and opportunity to see some really fantastic animals.
Nice. A second ago, you were talking about camping and backcountry camping. What camping opportunities do visitors get access to?
Yeah, so we have no established campgrounds. So if we have visitors who are coming with their RVs or their travel trailers, they get to stay somewhere else and come visit us during the day. But we do offer primitive backcountry camping. And so visitors have to come to us first, get a free permit, pretty much just so we can kind of know where they're generally going to be. But backcountry camping is available in most of our units. And so it pretty much is a hike as far as you want. Find yourself a spot off the trail a certain distance. Find a flat spot that hopefully doesn't have a fire ant mound in it, and set yourself up for the night. We also do allow camping along the rivers on the sandbars. And so people who are looking to do a multi-day paddle trip, either down Village Creek or down Neches River, they can find spots to stay out on the river, which is a great thing to do. Get yourself a little further away from human beings for a little while. And so I think the thing that is the coolest about our primitive backcountry camping process is that, yes, we ask you to get a permit, but it is all free. All of the programming, all of the things that we provide here, like our hunting permits and things like that, everything is free. And so we really try to break down any barriers people might have to come visit us, which is, it's just a great method to have.
And speaking of paddling, can you talk about what kind of paddling opportunities that are in the preserve? And I'm assuming you guys don't rent kayaks or anything, you just bring your own?
Right. So there are concessionaires in the area that do rent canoes and kayaks. We have a paddle program where we take people out in canoes and kayaks that have been provided by the Park Service, usually day trips to explore a little bit of the park, learn how to paddle with a ranger, get a nature talk, a welcoming to the Big Thicket. But pretty much any waterway in Big Thicket that is deep enough and wide enough that you can get a canoe down, you can go paddling, and there's no off spots that you can't go. We are home to 3 of the official Texas paddling trails. Village Creek Paddle Trail, which goes from State Highway 418 all the way down to Village Creek State Park, is one of them. We have the Cooks Lake Scatterman Loop Trail, which is just found right outside of Beaumont. You go through a tupelo forest. It is spectacular, hot, but spectacular during the summertime. And then we have the Lake Bayou Paddle Trail, which is actually very close to Beaumont. It uses some of the old canal and dredge canals, kind of in a backwater area. So there's a lot of variety. There's big rivers that you can go canoe and paddle, and there's very small, tupelo forests that you can also go through.
What about alligators?
We do have alligators occasionally. We actually had a researcher from Lamar University, which is our local university in the area. He did a study on alligators and in the Neches River, and he actually found that there's a high concentration of alligators close to Beaumont, and then there's a high concentration of alligators just south of Danby Lake. But between those two areas, alligators are few and far between. Not saying that they're not out there. It's just there's not a high concentration. So when we do have visitors come, a little wary of that. They are out there, but they tend to not be as present as other locations. Village Creek, from what I've heard from the experts, is that Village Creek is a little bit too cold and the banks are just a little bit too steep for them to, get out and be able to sun themselves. So they are out there. We are in Southeast Texas. There are alligators, but you're not going to see them very easily unless you go specifically looking for them in the right places.
Nice. And all the trails, are they dog friendly?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, dogs are allowed on any of our trails, as long as they're on a 6-foot leash. There's no closed areas for dogs.
All right. This is it's a question that I like to ask, and sometimes I certainly have little secret spots, little hidden gems in the quads, and I don't like to always give them out. But in your opinion, in the preserve, are there any kind of hidden gems for people that kind of want to make sure they avoid the crowds that you would recommend?
We do. That's the beauty of having so many different units, is that there are places that you really could go and just be completely by yourself. One of our units, the Lance Rozier unit, we say is the least developed. It has 2 dirt roads that go through it. It is the unit that it is one of the units that we allow hunting in. So if you go out during hunting season, make sure you wear your orange and you don't wear your deer ears, kind of things like that. But the Lance Rozier unit is, I believe, up to 20,000 acres. And you can just go out and explore. we encourage people, if they want to do that, to make sure they actually take a GPS unit with them, that they have a map, a very good map, things like that. But it's one of the areas that you can really kind of get deep into the woods and far away from people. The other spot that I always, if somebody expressed enough interest and kind of shows that they know at least a little bit of what's going on in their world, Canyonlands is another fantastic unit, and it's just north of Spurger, south of Martin Dyes Junior State Park. It's right along the Natchez, and that is the unit that has the most elevation. It's like a good 300 feet from the river up to the top of it. But that's just another, beautiful out of the way place that you really get to enjoy the solitude and enjoy just being out in the woods, which is, I think, so important for us to have, even here in Southeast Texas, where we do have a lot of woods. But it is nice to have places that you're welcome to go to and that they're open for everybody.
If you want to see an alligator, Martin
Yes.
Dyes Jr., that is alligator heaven.
That is, yep.
Yeah, I had them on the podcast. I think it was Catherine, the interpretive ranger, and I've been there a couple times, never saw an alligator. And I started following them on like the social media, and she's posting alligator pictures like they were, just tons of them. And I'm like, man, I've never seen one. And then even on the podcast, she's like, yeah, I can see one right now.
Yep.
So this is a really, I never thought about it. And, having the national parks in Texas, the Guads and the state parks, it's, I don't want to say it's new, but, it's just something that every state park really talked about and offering accessibility to everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And the passion that people have that are working within our park system to make sure that the park is available for everybody. So in looking at the preserve, is it accessible for families or people that have limited mobility, that they can still feel that they get a piece of the park?
Yeah, I think, the important thing that we've discussed here at Big Thicket is that we don't assume whether or not somebody can come to the park based on their ability, their mobility. They can make that decision. But we do have some great, very accessible spots for people who might not want to, have to go on more of a dirt path. We have the inner loop of the Sundew Trail, which is completely either concrete or boardwalk. And we, within the past couple of years, actually installed a series of 10 speaker boxes that when you walk up to it, you can push play. You can either hear, a short interpretive message that's about 30 seconds in length in either English or Spanish. And it's part interpretive, but it's also part audio descriptive. So if you have low vision, if we happen to have a person who is blind, they can stand there and paint the picture of what it looks like based on what we're describing, which is a great way to make the woods more accessible. We also have the first 8th mile of our pitcher plant trail that is also either boardwalk or concrete. So that also is available for them. On our website, we have audio described our whole visitor center. So people can go through our visitor center and listen to what the displays say, what they look like. And we recently also worked on making sure our Unigrid, which is the NPS fancy word for our map and our brochure, also audio descriptive. So we try at Big Thicket to make sure things are as accessible as they can be. We recently started also inviting out ASL interpreters to all of our big events and to all of our volunteer events. So we take the concern of either paying for an interpreter out of that equation. So if we do have people from different communities, that they have that accessibility taken care of for them, that they can then really enjoy their time here.
Oh, that's awesome. That's really awesome to hear. So, what do you think are the biggest surprises for first timers that come to the thicket?
I think it's overwhelming. You looked at that map and you're like, "Whoa, there's a."
Man, I was overwhelmed and I hike and backpack a lot.
Exactly. It is overwhelming. We might not be overwhelming with the view, but we are certainly overwhelming with all of the different places that you can go see and learn. And so I think sometimes people get a little overwhelmed, and that's why we always encourage everybody to come stop by the visitor center. And it's not just because I have wonderful rangers here, but it really is a great place to get that information. We understand not everybody can make it to the visitor center, so we also make sure a lot of information is on our website and on the NPS app, which has all of our hiking trails, all the maps, things like that. And so I think people realize that once they get here and they start looking around, they're like, "Oh, okay, we have all these options." And I think for a lot of locals, they forget that having a backyard national park site is really an important thing. It's a really cool to have, and it helps not just with giving space to people to get out and be outside and find that restorative health of being out in the woods, but it also helps out in the economy. We contribute, and I understand we're in the Southeast Texas. We're surrounded by oil and gas industry, which contributes billions of dollars. But we, on average, contribute about $20 million into the local economy, which is really fantastic because it provides not just a place for people to go, but it provides jobs, it provides hospitality industries, things like that. So I think sometimes people forget that we're here out of not just for the non-local visitors, but also for the local visitors.
And do you think when people arrive, they kind of underestimate how wild this place is?
I think they do, um, or
Yeah.
how wild the mosquitoes can get.
Yes.
We've had multiple people come back from a trail and be like, "I did not get enough mosquito spray." I think sometimes there is that misconception that, we're so close to towns and people's houses that they don't have to prepare. But we always encourage people to take plenty of water, even if it's during the wintertime, plenty of bug spray, make sure they know where they're going. And so, yeah, sometimes people do underestimate, and then they get out there and they come back with this look on their face like, "Oh my gosh, I didn't even know half of what I was seeing." And it was so fascinating to be out.
I think for me, when I was doing the research for this episode, the overwhelming part was it's so massive.
Hmm.
And I think you nailed the nail right on the head. Perfect answer is like, you don't have to be and my overwhelmingness was just like, oh, I don't want to, I want to make sure that I'm not going to miss
Yep.
this or miss kind of what the park is known for. And you said it perfectly. Don't get overwhelmed. Just come to the visitor center and let's have a conversation.
Yep. We love talking to our visitors.
Nice. So what do you think the best time of year for hiking and paddling is, and really just to enjoy the preserve itself?
I definitely think our shoulder seasons are the best, the spring and fall. Springtime, if you make it here like right at the beginning of April, you get to go see the pitcher plants in bloom, which are just the first time I saw them completely in bloom, a whole field. It was awe-inspiring. It was so beautiful. And it's warm enough, but not too mosquito-y, which is always, there's that fine line. And then fall time, once we've dealt with the summer and the heat and the humidity, and we think it's never going to end, all of a sudden fall arrives, mid-October, and the mornings are a little bit more crisp, but you still have that warmth of the sun. So those are my two favorite times. I do like the winter time. It's a different preserve during the wintertime. We don't have that dense, overwhelming feeling of it. And a humid cold is actually quite chilly at times. So people might show up and be like, "I thought I was going to the beach and it was going to be warm." And I'm like, "Nope, it's not warm today." I will say the real troopers that come out in summertime, oh, we love those visitors. They are just so ready to go explore and lose half their body weight in their sweat and their other half their body weight with the blood of the mosquitoes. So I would say come in the spring and the fall.
Nice. So, what do you think are the biggest conservation challenges facing the Big Thicket today?
I think we are still dealing with some of the conservation concerns that drove Big Thicket becoming Big Thicket was habitat fragmentation. We are able to protect these small amount, and 113,000 acres does not sound small, but there are small units that are just a little island surrounded by private property, which we do see, animals use. There's still migration and still movement between the units, but to have only a small portion really restricts our ability to do large scale restoration. So we have a partner organization, the Big Thicket Natural Heritage Trust, that helps identify potential properties to purchase through federal funds and add to Big Thicket land, which is a really cool thing. Not many national park sites can continue growing. Flood mitigation, we were impacted by Hurricane Harvey. We had some of our areas were under floodwaters, for a very long time. They impacted, all of our paddle trails. And so the ability to protect those bottomland floodplain habitats is so important because it gives these rivers the ability to kind of breathe when they get all flooded, and then, less, have a little wiggle room. And then I would say the last one is probably, it's a combination of either the amount of trash and illegal dumping that we have on our property, and or even like poaching of our animal species. So we try to combat that with education and talking to both visitors and hunters about why we want to continue protecting these areas and use the proper trash receptacles.
Again, I think we talked about it before the starting of the podcast. The quads are my heaven on earth. And
Mhm.
man, when I see trash on the trails, orange pills,
Yes.
microplastics, it kills me. And also on the Lone Star hiking trail, like I'm out there usually every Sunday when it's not horsefly season. And the amount of trash that I pick up at a trailhead or on the trail, because I'm always carrying trash bags, it's like, I mean,
It's disheartening. Mhm.
yes, like logically, you don't have to have a degree in environmental science to just kind of understand you shouldn't be throwing your trash out like people do. And it gets me.
Yeah, it gets me too, especially, we see, especially after large scale flooding events. I mean, our park looks fantastic, but it's only because everything has been flooded down our waterways into the niches, out to, the ocean. And so it's nice to see after the floods, but then you're like, oh, where did it all go? But we also see after large scale floods that, sometimes because we have so much land and so much property, people and contractors, they don't want to pay the dump fees. They go find a road that nobody lives on and they dump shingles or, drywall. And that's really hard to combat because we don't have the law enforcement rangers that we really, 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 really need. But we also have just this disconnect between taking your trash to the place where it should be, not to the easiest place. So it is disheartening. When I was volunteer program manager, we did a lot of trash cleanups. And when you go back to the same place and you find more new trash every time you go back there, it is a hard pill to swallow.
Yeah, and what gets me, I just recently completed a through hike of the Lone Star hiking trail, and you're on trail and you stumble across all this trash. Well, usually I'll try to pick it up,
Hmm.
or I'm parked fairly close where I can I'm not carrying it 100 miles.
Yep.
But yeah, it just man, to leave it there, it just killed me. And then, of course, like, okay, I need to get back there and then trying to remember what mile marker was that. And
Yep.
yeah,
It's hard.
We got to do better for sure. And I think you're absolutely right. Education is the way, that or a club. So I think this is a very interesting question. And I learned a lot from the, state parks that come on is there's always, I don't know, an alertness, but there's always a battle with invasive species. So do you have at the preserve like this, these invasive species that are impacting
Yeah, I think
you guys?
our top invasive species that impacts every section of Big Thicket would be the feral hogs. Um, they do so much damage to the trails, and not just the trails, but to the ecosystem as a whole as they root around and then they reproduce so incredibly fast. There's not a cold enough season. There's not a big enough predator to take care of them. So we are seeing some long-term damage done by the feral hogs. We are actually working with other national park sites that also have feral hogs to come up with an official policy on how to take care of feral hogs. We allow, during our hunting season, you can hunt feral hogs. We have an extended feral hog season for our hunters. We allow hog trapping within the park on the off season. So we're trying pretty much almost anything we can. We do understand that this might not be an issue that we can completely get control of. But we feel the more that we can do, the more partners we can bring into it. We even let adjacent landowners check out our hog traps to put on their land. So then if they catch hogs on their land, then maybe they won't be coming on to our land. So we just try to do as much as we can to control what we have within the park and hopefully make even a small dent of the population in Southeast Texas. And I think that's the biggest concern. We do have other invasive plant species that, we can take care of small populations. But the hogs, that is our biggest hurdle with invasive species.
I tell you what, I have two phobias in life, ticks and hogs, and both of them were found on the Lone Star hiking trail. And there is nothing like, and I usually start hiking early in the morning. There is nothing like scaring up,
Yep.
I don't know what you call multiple hogs, herd of hog at 6 in the morning when you can't see them, they can't see you, you just hear them. Oh man. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember the first time I saw a hog and I was like, what is that?
Yep. And there's probably 100% chance it's not going to attack me, but man, it freaks me out. So yeah, I run into them a lot. I don't see them a lot, but I run into them a lot on the Lone Star hiking trail.
Well, and just in case you want to be a little educated today, I looked it up. A group of hogs, usually the most common term used for it is a sounder.
A sounder of hogs.
A sounder of hogs.
Okay.
So.
All right. Thank you for that.
Yeah, that's why we're here for, education.
Absolutely. So I love this question. So what are some of the preserve's long-term goals for preserving this place over the next 5, 10, 15 years?
I think our biggest long-term project that we are tackling right now is the restoration of our longleaf pine ecosystems. We're on the very western edge of longleaf pine ecosystem in the south. And we have this amazing ability to get them back to a great place where then we can start reintroducing, like the red cockaded woodpeckers. And this restoration effort, it doesn't just involve our resource managers. It involves our fire office so we can have the prescribed burns at the right amount of time to, continue clear that underbrush. We have to work with our contracting officer. So when we get pockets of money, we can pay for groups to come out and herbicide it. So it's a really a multifaceted project that if we can get it right and if we can get it all done people can then go out and see what made this place so welcoming and inviting to people who call it home, who use this area both as a stopping point on their travels or home. And so I think that's our biggest thing, is that we want to restore this large scale restoration. So it's not just a snippet of an ecosystem, but it is an ecosystem that has been restored.
And what do you think is one thing that the public can do to support the protection of the Big Thicket?
I think the biggest thing that they can do is fall in love with enough to help protect it. Whether it can be something as simple as picking up their trash. If every visitor that came to visit us took their trash home, that is the easiest way for somebody to show their love for Big Thicket. They can also join park organizations that help raise efforts to continue to protect Big Thicket. They can write to their congressman about why Big Thicket is so important to Southeast Texas and why we should help protect it. And anytime that I think people give back to Big Thicket, whether it be their time when they're coming out to do volunteer projects with us, or time when they're reaching out to, their local senators, that means that we have ingrained enough in their soul, into their heart, that they want to protect it for not just them, but for future generations. And really at the core of it, the National Park Service, these places were set aside not just for us, but for those future generations. So our grandkids can see these places and understand why we tried so hard to continue to protect them.
What do you think is the best way for the public to really get connected into the park?
I love our visitor center. I'm just going to say, come visit us, come talk to us, come out on programs, come on our volunteer events, find a way. And of course, talk about us. If you're not from Southeast Texas and you go home, you're going to be like, oh my gosh, I just went to this amazing spot. You should go if you're ever in Southeast Texas. And then all of a sudden, that conversation gets started. I mean, some of the first people who went to visit the Grand Canyon, they went back and they told them so many people that they all wanted to go see it. So I really think it is a lot of word of mouth, sharing beautiful photos, and just embracing how awesome it is here.
I would assume that you all are on all the social medias and the events. And
you can find us through our website, which is if you go to NPS as in nationalparkservice.gov, we're part of the NPS app, and then social media, if you go on Big Thicket National Preserve. So you can find us all on that. And that's how we share not only our events that are happening, but snippets of the history of the area and beautiful pictures and ways to get involved.
What about cell service? So I'm backpacking out there, or I'm paddling. How is the cell service, and is it pretty reliable?
It is actually pretty dang reliable out here. We
okay.
That 500,000 people who live in the area like to also have cell service. So, I'm sure there's spots in, like the deep woods of Lance Rozier, let's say, or Jack or Bagel. You might not have the best cell service, but, you take 3 steps out of the trees onto, the road, then you'll get cell service again. So thankfully, cell service is easily found and fairly reliable out here.
And so for visitors, are there any kind of unique hazards that they should be aware of? Like if I had this question and I'm talking about the Lone Star hiking trail, I would just say snakes. Like during my hiking season on that trail, I'm batting 1,000 of seeing a snake. And I don't see them. I just walk past them and then they shoot off. And then I'm like, oh, there was a snake.
You're like, and there it goes. I will definitely say we have snakes. I like to encourage people when they're walking to look down and look up, because you might see a snake down below your feet. And if you look up, especially the right time of the year and the right type of trail, you might walk right underneath or through a golden orb weaver spider, which is surprisingly large and sticky, and hopefully you have taller people in your hiking group so they can, keep an eye out for it too. But
you have those?
We do. And they are abundant in some trails and
Oh
some
my
areas. So
gosh.
yes, it is, you're not just casually walking through the woods here. You are constantly looking for stuff that you think can kill you, but it actually doesn't. But yeah, I tell people that you have to be an active hiker. You have to be looking down, looking up, looking around. But most of everything, they see you before you see them. They get out of the way. But it's mostly, that's just kind of the regular hazards you would have, out exploring, kind of know where you're at, know where you're trying to get to go, and tell people where you're going. So if you don't show back up home, they can go find you.
I tell you what, I took my stepdad out. I think it's called Armand Bayou down in kind of by LaPorte, Pasadena area.
Okay.
We started hiking and we got about 10 steps on the trail, and you just looked ahead of you and there were 90 bazillion spider webs and those spiders. And I said, heck
Nope.
no, I'm not doing that. So maybe I have another phobia. And those spiders, okay, it's maybe like a bee sting, but man,
No.
I no, I am not doing that. So
I am right there with you. I am thankfully surrounded by taller people in my family, so I make them go first, but they are also scared of those spiders. So we don't do much hiking during the summertime because none of us want those spiders anywhere close to us. So
no, and there's so many.
yes, there's a lot.
And it's yeah, to the listeners, it's not just there's a spider here, there's a spider there.
No.
There are 10 bazillion
Mhm.
everywhere.
And if it's like the right season for them, you just, even here at the visitor center in the parking lot, you can look into like the small woods and you can see at least 10 to 15 spiders. And you're like, I'm good actually just staying right here, not going into those woods. Ooh, yeah, those give me the
Yep, I'm just gonna hang out at the visitor center.
exactly.
All right, is there any special gear, any special things that visitors would need that's maybe not, I don't know, that may be a little bit different if they come and want to explore at the preserve?
I would say number people should bring is bug spray. Like it's I had a mosquito in my office the other day. It's February, at least right now, and I'm like, what are you doing in here? So bug spray is the best thing to bring with you, including, of course, water to make sure you stay hydrated. But that is probably the best thing you can bring.
One thing I forgot to ask when we were talking about the paddling and stuff, what about swimming? Are visitors allowed to swim? Are there certain sections for swimming, or it's discouraged?
So swimming is, I'm trying to think of the right way to say this. Swimming is allowed, but not encouraged. There are a lot of our creeks are very windy, very full of trees and snags. And unfortunately, we have had people drown in the past in our waterways. And so we do encourage people if they are going to go swimming because it is hot and they want to cool off to put on a life jacket. Even if you are the best swimmer, even if you're Michael Phelps, you should wear your life jacket here because that will help even just a little bit will be, better than nothing. So we don't have any designated swim areas. We don't have any areas that we're like, this is safe. We just tell everybody that we discourage it, but we understand if they do want to go swimming that they have to be very aware of any snags, any pools, things like that.
All right. Are you ready for the most important question of the podcast and the last question of the
Of
podcast?
course.
All right. Well, we talked about a lot of wonderful things. So now this is your opportunity. Sell the preserve. Get it on our listeners' bucket list.
Ooh, this is a great thing. I would say if you are adventurous and you want to see a place that makes you feel like you could find a dinosaur or a plant that eats bugs and a place that reminds you of what this part of the country looked like before we all showed up, that Big Thicket is your place. It really is a hidden gem. It is a spot where you can go and not be surrounded by thousands of your nearest and dearest best friends. But it's also a place that you can take your friends and explore and enjoy time together. And that it is, it's a spot worth protecting and continuing to protect and to just enjoy. It's a great place to come visit.
Nice. I love it. One quick question. Can I catch a little ant and drop it into the pitcher plant or the sundew? Is that allowed?
You could maybe encourage an ant to go towards it.
Okay. I got it.
Yeah, I'm sure there's some regulation against, killing an ant in a sundew, but I have to triple check that.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. I love it. So, Megan, I can't thank you enough for coming on the podcast. We've been talking about doing this for a while.
Yes.
I'm going to thank Kenny for connecting us.
Yes.
I've really enjoyed it. I will definitely, within the coming weekends, be out there and hitting the visitor center. So a quick question just for if you looked at the park kind of in its whole, and you go from the most south point to the most north point, how long is that drive? Because, I mean, this park goes on for a while.
It does. So you go from pretty much Beaumont up to Woodville, which is about an hour-ish drive.
Okay. Okay.
Thankfully, the visitor center is kind of right smack dab in the middle, just north of Coons. But yeah, it's about an hour from top to bottom. And I would say equally an hour from one side to the other side, because we literally go from the Neches River to the Trinity River. So...
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I can't thank you enough. This has been a wonderful episode, and I hope you have a wonderful weekend and the rest of your day.
Awesome. You too.
And that wraps up another exciting episode of the Trailblazing Texas Podcast. We hope you enjoyed the episode today, and stay tuned for our next episode where we will pick back up where we left off and guarantee to uncover many more hiking gems and share many more tips to enhance your experience on the trail. Until then, happy trails and happy hiking.